All right, well, I think we can go ahead and get started. Welcome, everyone, to another edition of a Launch Minnesota Friday Forum. We typically do these on the fourth Friday of every month, but this is our special Minnesota Cup edition, so we have a special date. I'm really excited to talk about Minnesota Cup and how it's benefited many of the entrepreneurs here today. It's over 20. Is this the 20th season, Kaylin?
It's the 21st season.
21st season. So
No.
20 years this has been going on, and it still continues to innovate and support entrepreneurs in so many ways through mentorship, through prize money. Um, and so we're very excited to be talking about all the opportunities it presents. And so I'm going to turn it over to Kaylin, and she will be able to tell you everything Minnesota Cup has to offer and why you should consider participating this year.
Amazing. All right, give me a second as I share my screen. I do have a little presentation that we'll go through here today. All right. Can everybody see that? Sorry. Perfect. Great. All right. Well, welcome everyone. Thank you, Maddie, for the lovely introduction, and thank you to Maddie and Rob for hosting us here today. For those of you that I have not met, which is probably most of you, my name is Kaylin Oliver. I am the director of a program called Minnesota Cup, and we are the largest statewide startup competition in the nation. So today I'm going to do a little walkthrough of kind of what Minnesota Cup is, and then we have some wonderful panelists who are alumni of the program that can tell you a little bit more about their experience and what it is like to go through Minnesota Cup as we're in our application season right now for the newest season. So really at the core of what we do is our annual startup competition. Minnesota Cup runs from about March when we open applications all the way through September or October where we close out with our grand finale. It is basically a combination between an accelerator and a competition. And what we're doing is we're trying to select some of those top startups, emerging startups in Minnesota every year, and provide a couple of those really key pieces that you need to move forward, to launch forward. And some of those things include startup funding and seed funding. So we give out about $400,000 in non-dilutive, which means no strings attached, no equity taken, cash prizes every year. We pair the top 90 companies that make it to our second round with expert mentors. We have about 100 volunteer mentors from the community that have a pretty wide scope of expertise and backgrounds that can kind of help fill in some of those gaps as you're building out your team and building out your product or service moving forward. And then at the end of the day, sometimes those connections and those open doors are really what are able to make you get to the next point in your startup journey. So that networking and the publicity of Minnesota Cup is also a really valuable piece for our companies going through it. As Maddie said, or as I said, this is our 21st season that we're going into. So we're very thrilled to celebrate 20 years of, in fact, we started this program in 2005. So I always like to level set with just a little bit of program impact because it's fun for me to brag a bit about what we've done. So over the past 20 years, we've been able to work with 26,000 entrepreneurs across the state of Minnesota. And in those 20 years, our team has been able to deploy $5.8 million in those cash prizes, which really has been critical. That non-dilutive cash is really critical for very early stage startups. And then the really cool thing is you're watching what we're investing in these companies, and the alumni of the program have actually been able to go on and raise about $1.1 billion to continue pushing their companies forward in grants, venture capital funding, angel investors, really helping drive forward their businesses and innovation, but also the entire Minnesota state economy. This is a fun slide. After 20 years, we obviously have some really great companies that have come through the program. You're going to hear from some of our recent ones today, but a couple that you might recognize on here, if you're cider fans, Minneapolis Cider Co. has gone through the cup. Johnny Pops was a 2014. They actually went through as students and obviously have gone on to find a lot of success. And then, of course, when you're looking in Minnesota, there are some great healthcare companies, Carrot Health, Stemonics, et cetera. So we're very proud of all of these companies that have come through the cup and are continuing to find success in the ecosystem. All right, this is the core of it. So what am I actually talking about? How does it work? What are you doing when you're applying for Minnesota Cup this year? So I'll walk through this for you. The first step is super easy. All you have to do is complete an application, and they're absolutely 100% free. The whole competition in the program is free. And all we're looking for when you're completing this application for criteria is that you are a Minnesota-based company and you're less than $1 million in annual revenue. So we are looking across industries, across stages, and across the state. It's really meant to be open and an opportunity for any individual that's based here in Minnesota that's early stage, even if you are just in that ideation stage, to come through. The application itself is very valuable and everybody is going to get feedback from their application. So when you are going through and you're initially filling out that application, what we've been able to do is essentially create 9 mini competitions within the full competition. So when you apply, you're going to select one of these competition divisions. These represent pretty much any industry that you can think of, as well as our student division, which is for undergrad and graduate students, and our youth division, which is for any startup founder 18 and under. The rest of them represent industries. So we let our applicants select the division that they feel fits best for their company. And then as you go through the competition, the judges are split up by divisions. So those that are looking and evaluating your applications and your company moving forward all have expertise in that industry and can provide really targeted feedback. And then you're also competing against other folks that are in that same industry, which makes it a little bit easier for our judges to not have so many apples to oranges comparisons when they're evaluating. The application itself is really only 3 questions. We are looking and evaluating 3 things throughout the entire competition. The first is opportunity. That's worth 50% of our weighted scoring. And opportunity to our team means pretty much 2 things. The size of your market, what are you able to actually offer, and how large is that opportunity in terms of market size? And also, we're talking about the next big idea in Minnesota. We're talking about innovation. So the other half of the opportunity is, how unique is your product or service? Is this something that has not been brought to the market before? Or if it has, what is your twist or differentiator for what you're doing? So that is a really key part throughout the whole competition. The second part that we are judging you on is worth 25%, and that's your plan. So this is your business plan, the nitty-gritty strategy about how you're actually going to take your opportunity and your idea and implement it and make it all happen. And then the last 25% is the progress. This is the part that looks different for really every company that applies, especially because we're looking at so many stages. So our progress, we're really just looking at what you've done so far, and are you taking the right steps to move forward and considering the right things as you're moving forward. When you're filling out the application, we actually have kind of probing questions underneath each of these sections to help you start thinking about what needs to be talked about when you're talking about these, you're answering these questions. And each of them has a 500-word limit. So it's a pretty short application. We're expecting you to be clear and concise, and I encourage you to take advantage of those 500 words. All right, so after you fill out your application, what happens is our judges go through, and as I said, these judges have expertise in the division that they are judging in. They're going to give feedback. You're going to get feedback regardless of whether you make it forward to our next round or not. So everyone will get feedback from either the judges or our team on your application to help you move forward. And then the judges are going to select the top 10 companies in each of the 9 divisions. So as we move forward to our second round, what we call our semifinalist stage, there will be 90 companies that are selected from our applicant pool to go through what is really the more robust aspect of the competition. So what is that more robust aspect of the competition? So over the summer, basically what we're doing for our semifinalists is a couple things. We are pairing all 90 of them with 2 of those expert mentors I mentioned. We are going through education sessions, walking through tips and tricks on building out a business plan, building out investor pitch decks, all of these things. Publicity opportunities, pitching opportunities, networking and connections with the mentors and with the judges. And then I just mentioned the materials that you'll be developing. So all 90 semifinalists to be evaluated as we move on to the third stage will submit a 2-page executive summary of their business plan, a 15-slide pitch deck, and a 1-minute marketing video. And we've developed these materials with the intent that they are things that you will need moving forward post-competition. So all of these pieces are supposed to help you both understand and develop your company, but also hopefully they will be beneficial to you after you go through MinCup. All right, finally, the funding. We call this kind of our carrot on the stick because when you throw around a number like $400,000 in non-dilutive funding, it definitely draws attention to what you're doing. So this is how we break down our $400,000. We will take eventually those 10 semifinalists in each of those divisions will be narrowed down to one division winner in each, so 9 division winners. And barring our youth division, which is a little bit special, those division winners will each take home $25,000. And then they have a chance to go head to head against each other to compete for our grand prize. They pitch one more time in October to a new set of judges, and our grand prize is worth another $50,000 on top of that 25. The grand prize runner-up, the second place of the whole competition, gets another $15,000. And then we have some really incredible dedicated prizes, including our top founder of color, our top women founder, our top Greater Minnesota founder. You'll hear some of our winners of those prizes talk today too. So between all of that, it adds up to about $400,000 in non-dilutive funding that we're able to deploy every year. All right, well, I am talking about all of this because our applications are open right now. They opened last Monday or this Monday and will be open through April 11th. Like I said, this is completely free, but you can listen to me talk all day and get very bored. So the intent here is to give you a little bit of a chance to hear from some of our alumni that went through the program last year. So we have some really great folks on our call today. I'm actually going to stop sharing my screen so that they can introduce themselves. And we can all look at each other. So today we have joining us 3 of our division winners from last year. So Jenny Lynch from Mommy Solutions, Andrew Dahlberg from Talknician, and then Tony Drews from Noshke Native Games. So I will have each of them introduce themselves, tell us a little bit about the company that they competed with and where they ended up placing in Minnesota Cup last year. Let's see, Tony, you're first on my screen, so why don't you start?
Wonderful. Miwa out Chinoden. My name's Tony. My Ojibwe name's Chinoden, which means big wind. Noshke Native Games, our mission is to increase awareness and empower learning of Ojibwe culture and language through gameplay. We were in the Impact Division. It was just an amazing opportunity to go through the full competition, the mentors, the feedback from the judges. I'm just getting that chance to pitch your mission and your business time and time again. We had just really launched about maybe a year before we went into Min Cup. So it was an amazing experience, yeah. And we were a division winner, so that was super, super great too. So was that what you're looking for? Did I miss
That was
anything?
perfect.
Perfect. Thanks.
Thank you, Tony. Andrew, you're next on my screen.
Hi guys. Yeah, so my name's Andrew. I'm one of the founders of a company called Talknician. Basically, we're the knowledge transfer space, so making sure that all of that institutional knowledge within a company can actually be used. And yeah, so we were the education and training division winners this year. And we've actually gone through Minnesota Cup a couple times. So we went through in 2023, we're a semifinalist then. Continued to grow the company. We went through the generator program in End Motion in Nebraska, came back, did it again. And yeah, it's a great experience. Some of the mentors you'll meet through this have been incredible. They've been, so helpful. And I think that that's one of the biggest things you'll actually get out of that if you play your cards right, is the mentorship you can get through Minnesota Cup.
Awesome. Thank you, Andrew. All right, Jenny, close us out.
Hi, I'm Jenny. I'm with Mommy Solutions. We're creating accessories to the breast pump that will empower mothers to collect more breast milk in less time. This is actually, we went through the competition technically 3 times. Last year in 2024, we were the grand prize winner. In addition, kind of what Kaylin mentioned, we also won the top woman-led business award, and then we were the winners of the general division. Previously, in 2023, we also went through the competition and we were division finalists in the general division. And then in 2022, we did apply, but we didn't get selected for the competition, mostly because we didn't have the right division selected, we thought we were going to be more in the life sciences division because we're a medical device, but it wasn't really a good fit there. So the next year we decided the general division was kind of more niche, and it ended up being successful there.
Amazing. Andrew, I saw your reaction there. Talknician was also the top Greater Minnesota prize winner this year.
Yeah, I forgot to mention that one. Yeah.
Amazing. Well, the cool thing about the folks that are on our panel today is they kind of each represent different paths that you can take in Minnesota Cup. Noshki was a first-time applicant this last year, and they ended up as our division winner for the Impact division. And then you have Talknician and Mommies, who both have gone through the competition before, even pivoted from not making it in. What was that? That was 3 years ago, Jenny. So the path that you can take very much differs, and often what we see is more of that you've gone through as either a semifinalist or you've made it to the finalist round, and you come back, and that's when you are able to really make it to the next level. So until you actually take home the prize money from the division winner slot, you are able to continue to reapply and go through the competition more than once. Amazing. All right, so my next question for our panelists is really just, what was your biggest takeaway of going through the competition? For Andrew and Jenny, it could be this last year, or it could be you can draw upon previous years when you've gone through. But Jenny, I'll start with you.
Yeah, well, I think this is such a hard question for me to wrestle with because I think there are so many wonderful takeaways from Minnesota Cup. First of all, I'm a really big proponent. Anybody who is touching the Minnesota startup ecosystem, you should be, keeping your eye on Minnesota Cup. If you're a founder, at times it can get lonely, even when you have a co-founder. I think the networking opportunities at Minnesota Cup are really fun and really convenient ways to kind of dip your toes into the startup ecosystem. In addition to that, I mean, the connections that you make, a lot of people who aren't active founders do pay attention to Minnesota Cup. So a big takeaway is the connections might not even be fellow founders. They might also be community members. And some of them are really involved in the business ecosystem here in the Twin Cities. And then personally for us, a big takeaway from Minnesota Cup, like Kaylin said, are the materials that you do get. Or you create and then you use for your business later down the line. I've leaned on those materials many, many times. So those are kind of my I would say 2 or 3 biggest takeaways from Minnesota Cup.
Yeah, amazing. Thank you, Jenny. Andrew, what about you?
Yeah, I'd echo a lot of what Jenny said there. So as far as the application thing, I got a big Notion document, and all the stuff I use for MN Cup is in there. And then if I'm applying for VC money or other grants, a lot of it is just copy and paste into there, make a couple changes here and there where applicable. And the prize money is fantastic. It's really helped us out. It's allowed us to accelerate development. But I think the biggest thing that MN Cup has given us is some of the mentorship and just given us some of the direction as far as where to take our company. So our best mentor, we actually met in 2023 when we only made semifinalist round. And he actually lives out in Hermosa Beach. So we got to visit him when we flew out for LA Tech Week this past year. And that was really special. And we were saying, hey, a lot of what you were teaching us kind of helped us win that. So that was a really special experience. Yeah.
Amazing. Tony.
Yeah, I mean, to kind of piggyback on both, the relationships, if it wasn't just meeting and getting to know the people in my division better and understanding that cohort, the mentors and the coaches were amazing. And just all of the connections throughout the whole competition, and even at the end when we thought we were done at the finale, just people coming by your booth and meeting you, it was great. The support, I still have a hard time kind of seeing myself as an entrepreneur, really new into this, but all of the supports that were given to us and the opportunity to just keep doing it and getting to know the numbers and getting to know the things that were important were super helpful. And then at the end, especially the validation, as I said, we're just first year into our business, and to experience what we did, it just validated that we're doing the right thing. So those are the 3 big takeaways I had.
Amazing. That was perfect. You all kind of moved into my next question a little bit, which is fun, but I would love to hear a little bit more about some of those connections that you were able to make with Minnesota Cup, whether they be mentors or judges that were able to help you, or even just community members that were able to connect you to something else. We hear a lot that is the most valuable piece. So I just love if you have a story or two. Andrew, yours is perfect, but of other connections that you were able to make that have pushed you forward. Andrew, do you have any others besides your mentor?
Yeah, so a couple of the like our first customers when we were working exclusively with manufacturing came from saying, hey, I've seen some of the stuff you were doing with Minnesota Cup, or hey, I've seen some of the stuff you were doing with Generator when we were in Nebraska. So it was really fun to see all of that come in. And I think one of the biggest things we got is it was kind of interesting. I was actually on a date like about a month ago, and one of the guys from the division, he was a semifinalist in the education and training division. We recognized each other there, so I was like, "Hey, this is kind of neat. It's a unique experience of people that have come through, and some of the friendships you make there too, even from some of the people that came through 2023. It's been really special to kind of stay in touch with those people, help each other out where applicable. It's a real cool experience."
That's awesome. I love how small of a world the startup ecosystem becomes after you do something like this. That's perfect. Tony, what about you? What are some of those connections you're able to make?
Yeah, some of the strongest ones were Julie with the pitch support. Really developed a good relationship there, and still lean on her when I need her services. Then there was Spirit Services. They were in our impact area, serving Native American elders through home care services, and just understanding them better and how we can support our community together. And like the biggest takeaway one was, we're a small company struggling with manufacturing, and boy, the leads that came out to overseas production, and that's a scary process for when you're not even an entrepreneur. So we really utilized those connections, and been working with them over the past year. So yeah, some great connections and relationships.
That's wonderful. Yeah, so if anybody's ever heard of Pitchwell, Julie Kaczynski is the founder of that company, and she does pitch coaching. So we bring her in to help out some of our folks before we throw them into those big investor pitches. Jenny, what about you?
Yeah, I mean, kind of echoing both Tony and Andrew, there are so many connections that you make the whole entire process, the whole journey of Minnesota Cup. For us, conveniently, at the end of Minnesota Cup, we had a lot of connections who reached out to us as grand prize winners. But I also like to highlight that our most important connection, personally, Mommy's made during the Minnesota Cup season came 3 months before we won the grand prize. And I like to highlight that because you can participate in this competition and still gain a lot of value, even though it's not monetary. So one of our biggest, I guess, connections we made was at the semifinalist reception, which if you apply to Minnesota Cup, get into, are selected as a semifinalist. Kaylin, I'm sure, could talk a little bit more about this, but there is an event where you do have to pitch just briefly your company, and you never know who's in the audience. I like to always say that no matter, even beyond Minnesota Cup, for these pitch opportunities, you never know who's in the audience. And unfortunately for Minnesota Cup, as you move through the program, you will have opportunities to pitch multiple times, hopefully. But again, I just always like to say, there could be somebody there who's really valuable to your business. And all they need to do is just listen to your pitch. So that is a component that I like to highlight.
That's awesome. Thank you, Jenny. Yeah, she's talking about every year we host a semifinals reception. This year it'll be on June 5th. It's always open to the public and free. And it's a very chaotic event in that we have 3 different rooms going, and all 90 semifinalists are pitching for 1 minute simultaneously. But it's a really good kind of break-in for some of the community members to the ecosystem. We encourage a lot of folks that are new to the startup world to come, because it shows all of the really fantastic innovation that's happening in Minnesota. And Jenny's right. We are very, we keep these things open to the public because those are the folks that are going to be able to support you moving forward. And those are the doors that we want to be able to open for you, whether it be more intentional through those mentor connections or just kind of a like serendipitous connection. Somebody's listening to you in the crowd and they connect with what you're talking about. So I love that, Jenny. That's awesome. So I'm curious, some of you mentioned a little bit the materials that you're developing for your round 2. So as I mentioned, that's an actual investor pitch deck. It's an executive summary of your business plan, and it's a 1-minute marketing video. I'm curious kind of what that experience was like and how those materials have helped you moving forward, what kind of value they've brought. Jenny, I'll start with you.
Yeah, this is a really good question. As somebody who is reaching out potentially to future funders, we are, Mommy's is a recipient of multiple federal grants. So we've used these materials that Kaylin has talked about for other uses, which has been wonderful. The materials, I kind of looked at Minnesota Cup as I'm doing the work now and it'll pay dividends later. You need to have, for your business, you should have an investor deck or just a pitch deck. You should have an executive summary. These are things that I think are really important for business owners to have on hand. So we kind of looked at creating these materials as, you know, specifically for Minnesota Cup, but we're utilizing this time in order to pay dividends in the future for us, because you never know what business will be like in the future. And it's nice to have this time that you've set aside and worked with a mentor to kind of polish those materials up for future use. So we went through, for the round 2 materials, you get paired with 2 mentors. And that's a really great way to kind of polish your materials. Every single mentor brings a different perspective, and that's where you have to be intentional. If you make it to the semifinalist round, you have to be intentional about which mentors you select. But it's just kind of nice to be able to have that devoted time that you have with mentors to keep on track to create those materials, and it'll just pay dividends for you in the future.
Amazing. Thank you, Jenny. Tony, what about you?
Yeah, that round 2 material was like the foundation of everything that we did. I don't want to say I cheated at all, but it was kind of, I'm a alumni of the Finnovation Fellowship as well. And exciting news, a little plug for them. They just got refunded and they're going to be putting applications out, I think this fall. They choose, or the round that I was in, they chose 9 of us to get $50,000 for early stage entrepreneurship. So I worked on a lot of that material through that, and it came right into MinCup, but definitely we had to repurpose it a little bit. The video was amazing. I hadn't done any work in the video, and we've repurposed that to for our educators. So all of that, constantly looking back on, constantly working on. Yeah, great material and really kept us on par.
Awesome. Oh, I'm so excited to hear about Finnovation. That's great. Thank you, Tony.
Shoot, maybe I shouldn't have said that. That's some inside
it's okay.
information. So you didn't hear that from me.
Deal. Very exciting though. Andrew, what about you?
Yeah, I think with the materials, the biggest thing that it's helped us with is a lot of those things are going to be expectations going forward. If you're talking to investors, they're going to want to see, I think the 15-slide pitch deck is really helpful if you're like sending out an email template, especially if you have a little bit more time there. I think that some of the reps you get as far as the like live pitch, that really helps too. And then some of the stuff like the executive summary, a lot of that's for your internal use. It kind of directs, okay, where are we going with this business? Do you actually have a plan in place? Let's write this down, right? And I think you have to be able to articulate your ideas to both outside parties, but as well as yourself and anybody that's, internal to that company. If you bring somebody on, okay, what are we doing here? What are we trying to achieve? And I think that's some of the biggest stuff that we've actually gotten with it. Just kind of, clarifying your thinking on a lot of that stuff.
Amazing. That's perfect. I do, because we've heard about both Generator and Finnovation now. I think that it's important to mention that this is an ecosystem of organizations. Minnesota Cup has Been around for so long, but the ecosystem is definitely built up around us, and there are so many different organizations that either you can do before you come into MinCup, or perhaps we can be a launch pad to take you into, or you do it in between, like Talknician did. So there, I encourage you to not just limit yourself to this, to explore the other opportunities that exist in the ecosystem. And we are very lucky to have the ecosystem that we do here in Minnesota for the startup support. All right, I have one more question for our panelists here. Obviously, we're in the midst of application season, and I'm sure there are some folks on this call that are interested in applying, at least I hope so. So I would love to hear just what advice you have for a founder that's considering applying, whether it be advice for the actual application itself or just kind of encouraging them to make sure that they're applying. Tony, I'll start with you.
Yeah, I mean, I start now. You can go back and rework it as many times as you need. I had some support, outside support looking at it, so make sure you have other people looking at it and giving your advice, and just do it. I mean, yeah, just do it.
That's perfect. Yeah, I always tell folks that the more eyes that you can have on your application before you submit it, especially people that do not know your company, do not know what you're doing, and are just have a fresh perspective, the better, because they're going to help you find the gaps for the judges that also don't know your company. All right, Andrew, what about you?
I would say that kind of to Kaylin's point earlier, there's an entire ecosystem out there, people that are willing to help you. And take advantage of that. You know, there are a lot of people that want to be a resource for you. They're happy to kind of be a sounding board. The mentors that you get from Minnesota Cup are fantastic, but there are a lot of, I don't know, I'd call them informal mentors that you can get, you know, just talking to people that have gone through it or gone through similar programs, and they can give you a lot of really good feedback. And then kind of to Jenny's point earlier, pick the right division. I think that there are, you know, if you feel like you could fit into a couple of them, pick the one that you feel like you can explain the most, I guess, articulately, if that's the word, and make sure that you can, I guess, have a plan going in there for how you can approach that division specifically. And I think that's what Talknician did. We could have fit into the high tech or the training division. And I think that a lot of what our product offering is based around training. So we selected that. And then it turned out well for us.
That's awesome. Thank you, Andrew. All right, Jenny, what do you got?
Well, continuing on with Tony and Andrew, I mean, I will have to say what Andrew said about selecting the division that you think you'll be the most successful in is key, especially at the beginning stage. Like I shared, we selected, you know, the division that we thought we fit in, but then, you know, upon reflection, we decided we're actually a different product that could probably fit in a different division, and it worked in our benefit. The other thing I would say is for Minnesota Cup, you really do get out what you put in. So the application, even that helps you think about what is the best way for me to communicate like the value proposition of my company and then my solution. And I can't tell you, even as I've continued on in entrepreneurship, how often I think about that and come back to either my application or other materials that I've created for similar ecosystem opportunities. So again, putting in what you or taking out what you put in a similar vein, the round 2 materials, if you dedicate your time to kind of polishing those materials to a way that's not just successful to Minnesota Cup, but also to your business and its longevity. I think that obviously putting that time in is really impactful for your company in the long term. So I try to encourage people to think about, you know, this is dedicated time for your business to work on these materials and really think about how you're communicating your business, you know, either through your materials or through a pitch. Just taking that time to really communicate your value proposition, because you will have to do that over and over and over again with your business. So being intentional with your application, being intentional with the materials that if you get selected for the competition, the materials that you create is really kind of the big takeaway that I have.
That's perfect. Thank you. Oh, well, thank you all. That was all Wonderful. And now, after we've covered all of that, I want to move into some just open questions, whether it's questions a little bit more about the logistics for me, or if you have questions about our panelists' experience and what it was like for them to go through Minnesota Cup. It's probably just easiest if people either do the hand raise or just unmute and ask. Whatever you prefer. But I can't imagine we covered everything you want to know, so.
I'm Pam Hack. I have a question just about the time commitment. Generally speaking, we all have a lot we're doing within our business. So to work on the business, I'm just wondering approximately how much time and how many events and things like this. What's the schedule?
Yeah. I can give a little bit of a broader overview for that. Jenny summed it up very well in saying you're going to get out what you get in. We are very flexible with the time, and a lot of the events and kind of the education sessions we do label as optional. So it's always highly encouraged that you're attending those to get as much value out of the competition as possible. But otherwise, when you're going through, you're expected to meet with the mentors about 2 or 3 times. So that takes up some time. And then really the most of the time that you're spending during the semifinalist round is on those materials. So we'll have a couple events throughout that timeline that are, like I said, optional, will help you with those materials, but you can choose how you want to go through it. And it really does depend on how much involvement you want to have. Maybe one of our panelists has a better actual time answer about kind of how much time you felt like you spent on it.
Can I just clarify also? I was wondering if there are regular meetings or time commitments weekly or.
There are not, no.
Okay.
So it's a little bit different than other programs.
Sure.
We do kind of leave it up to you and just provide support along the way.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's nice because it's both a lot of work and a lot of time, but it's not structured time. And I made the mistake a year before I even applied for MinCup, take a 2-week family vacation to Hawaii in July, right as round 2 materials were due. So it's a lot of work, but it is very well manageable too.
Thank you.
Andrew, did you have something to add?
Yeah, just say as far as like an estimate for the actual application itself, initial one probably like, I don't know, 5 hours. And then the round 2 materials probably another 10. And then throughout the course, obviously a couple of days where you got like, an afternoon blocked off. If it's like an event that they're throwing with MinCup, or if it's the semifinalist kind of kickoff. Yeah, it's not that much time. Just a few days kind of blocked off. And like I said, maybe like 5 hours for the initial application, probably 10 for the round 2 materials, I guess. That'd be my estimate.
Thank you. That's very helpful. That's
Yeah.
Thank you, Andrew.
I will say it does differ because I'm sure, so my co-founder Ashley and I probably spent a little bit more time on our round 2 materials, but we felt really pressured to impress our mentors because we really bonded and connected with our mentors this year, and then the previous year as well. So we spent I think I spent a lot of evenings and weekends working on materials, but it's totally manageable, I believe, especially if you have a co-founder. That's always helpful.
And we do, Pam, give out, so the round 2 materials, you essentially have about 2 months from when you're selected, and we provide all the information about what you're going to need to submit to when it's due. So we try to give you a lot of time to be able to spend on these materials, so it doesn't feel quite so pressured.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Laura, great question. I think Maddie summed that up exactly how I was going to start with she asked about other resources and organizations. The MSP Startup Guide that Maddie linked is a great place to start for being able to filter through what you're looking for. There's a little keyword search option on there. So you can look for industry specific resources, audience specific resources, stage specific. It's a lot of information, but a really great place to start.
I'll also give a little plug to Launch Minnesota's calendar. We have a calendar for startups and small businesses, and it has events throughout the state. So I'll drop a link to that as well. So that's a great place to find new events if you're new to the community or looking to plug in.
Yeah. The other thing, so I mentioned the The one thing to consider about MinCup, it is competitive. We do receive a lot of applications and we do have to cut it down to 90. So I mentioned that everybody's going to get feedback. We want to make sure that you are getting value out of completing the application, whether you move forward or not. The other thing that I do is I kind of slice and dice our applicants a little bit to make sure that you are getting a list of pretty targeted resources, depending on geography, your industry, all of those things, so that you have direction for where to go next if you're not selected for MinCup this year. Other questions? Feel free to throw them in the chat too, if that's more comfortable.
Yeah, I was just struggling with my camera. Sorry. So I've been having a text discussion with our board, and we've decided we will not be applying to the Minnesota Cup again. Not because it is a great program. I've gone through it 3 times with 3 different businesses. I got to top 2 or 3 in our division, I don't know, 5 years ago. But for us, and I got to tell you the reason why we went through last year and we got some good connections and good materials. But we've moved so fast now that we have customers and clients and a business, and we just said that, I mean, you get what you get what you put into the program, really, right? And it's a lot of money that you look at, but if you divide the people trying by the amounts coming out, it's about $200, so we're like, you know what I'm saying? Like 26,000 or 5.8 million divided by 26,000 is like, ends up being $200. So I would say this to anyone, like if you're going into it for the prize money, play the lottery, right? I mean, if you're not going to do the work, just play the lottery, right? But we've decided that the time and effort and energy that it takes to go through Minnesota Cup, we're at a place in our business where it's better for us to prioritize our customer relationships, our sales, and our products. So nothing against Minnesota Cup. I just want to say, you as a business owner, like anyone as a business owner, understand the Minnesota Cup is there to help you, but I kind of think it's probably, like a lot of incubators and accelerators, it's probably more a service to investors for vetting of businesses, right? That's my thought. But anyway, those were kind of comments, not really a question. But I thought I had to be fair to you, Caitlin, and maybe this isn't the best place to say. We definitely considered applying again, because we know that when you repeat your like mommies, when you repeat it, you're likely to go further. We're just like, even if we get to the top, our reward is better spent with our customers. So anyway, thank you. Rant over.
Yeah, and kind of spinning that, I actually won't totally disagree with what you're saying. If you're kind of getting close to that $1 million in revenue and you need to prioritize your business, absolutely. For us, we're pre-revenue, and we are looking for investors. It was a really great fit for us for that reason. So I think that there are a lot of business owners here who can resonate with either one of our perspectives, but I will say if you're somebody who's pre-revenue, or maybe you have initial revenue and you're looking to get an extra bump from connecting with the ecosystem, potentially getting in front of hopefully investors if they're in the crowd, this is a really great opportunity to do so. If you've kind of passed that milestone, I don't disagree with what Peter's saying, but just giving that additional perspective of think about where your business is at and how you can leverage Minnesota Cup to be beneficial for your current stage of business.
That's a great response, Jenny. Thank you. And yes, Peter, I totally understand, and I appreciate your transparency and honesty. I do think it's a consideration that you have to take to your team and you have to think about before you do, because yes, it is a commitment. And everybody comes through with a different expectation and a different priority. There are folks that enjoy coming back because they want to meet new mentors and it opens up new connections for them. And that's what they're looking for. There are folks that really do have the prize money on their mind and that is what they need. So as would be the case with any program that exists around Minnesota accelerators, incubators, etc. There's a time commitment, and you do have to be intentional with your time as an entrepreneur. So absolutely, I appreciate the grain of salt there. That was great. Thank you, Peter. Any other questions? Amazing. There is one last thing that I wanted to mention. We talked a little bit about the divisions and making sure that you're selecting the right division. And that's probably the most commonly asked question I receive when people are in the application period. And I want to just share, while I have everybody's attention, the two pieces of advice that I give. At the end of the day, it is your choice what division that you want to be in, because you know your company best. So you can ask me my opinion and I will certainly share, but at the end of the day, it's your choice. And what I typically do is actually direct people to think about the judges that will be on the panel. All of our judges are public knowledge. We have a list on our website. And you can go and take a look at them split by division and see who are some of the people that maybe you want to try to get connected with, because that's one of the opportunities that comes from kind of going through the competition, is those open doors for the judges. So that's something that I have people consider, but truly it's up to you. Jill, I see your question, and I have an actually great answer. So the financial piece in our initial application, bear with me as I navigate to a registration page here. In our initial application, the financial projections are optional. However, I say that, but our judges really like to see them. Even if you are pre-revenue, you are early stage, having a little bit of a sense of where you think the company can go financially is very valuable to our judges. So we actually are hosting an event on the 24th, a virtual webinar with a local firm called Eisner Amper. And they're actually going to go through and walk through the basics of financial projecting. They're going to provide an Excel template that makes it very easy to build out initial projections, and we'll cover the basics from a very foundational level. So Jill, I highly encourage you to check that out if you're available. I will record it and it'll be available on our website as a resource as well. So hopefully that's helpful. Any other questions? Let's see. Perfect. Amazing. Okay. Well, I'm going to, Maddie did this earlier, but I want to throw our application link in the chat one more time. As I mentioned, applications are open right now, completely free, no harm in applying, I like to say. You'll get feedback regardless, and they will close on April 11th. If you have any questions whatsoever, this is our email that I'm throwing in the chat right now. Feel free to reach out, or if you go to our website, we do host office hours weekly. So you're more than welcome to meet with me and my team if you have any questions. Patricia, is there a difference between applying early for judge consideration? Nope. Apply whenever. Most of our applicants actually wait till the last minute and submit on the last day, just so they have as much time as possible to refine their application. But the judges will receive everything at the same time. So yeah, great question. All right, any other questions? Wonderful. Well, I want to say a huge thank you to everyone for joining us, and a special thank you and shout out to our panelists for sharing their experience today and taking some time to talk about Minnesota Cup and say such nice things. It's always fun for me to hear from our alumni. So I really appreciate it. And I'm very excited to hopefully see some of your applications coming through in the next few weeks. And thank you, of course, to Launch Minnesota for hosting us today.
Yeah, as always, thanks to MinCup for joining us. This is always a session that I look forward to every year. And thank you so much, Jenny, Andrew, Tony, for volunteering your experience. I really encourage everyone to apply or at least look into it. And please reach out to Kaylin if you have any questions. But thanks for joining us, and we will talk soon. Bye, everyone.
Take care, all.